Alrighty, guys. Football season is back. My Niners got fucking destroyed by the Raiders. Um, Look, man, before I get to the topic, I didn't like how Trey Lance looked, man. I thought he's playing hero ball. He's making back shoulder throws when he's redirecting, like his momentum of his body is going one way and his throwing mechanic and arm is going the other, doing cross body throws. Look, man, this ain't baseball. You can do that in baseball. You can't do that in football, man. The defenders are way too fast. They zone in on the ball. They close on the ground. It's going to be difficult, man. Kyle really needs to showcase Trey Lance. If he does not showcase Trey Lance, there's no way you're going to get any trade offers for him. You got essentially three quarterbacks that can start. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold. You can win games with all three of those to lead the 49ers. That's how stacked that nucleus is, right? On the defensive side of the ball, we have a lot of depth. Offensive side of the ball, the works. But if you don't showcase Trey Lance right now, and let's say a team that's desperate to sign a quarterback, you're going to end up spending a whole bunch of draft picks that you gave up for Trey Lance, and he's going to walk out the door, essentially. But with that being said, man, I'm going to go straight into boxing. Look, in 2012, something interesting was happening in terms of what the sport of boxing was going to look like for the Mexican fan base. During this time and during this year, there was two up-and-coming fighters. One had the backing. Well, both had the backing. But one had a father's last name. And then there was a red-headed kid, young heartthrob with freckles that knew how to fucking fight, Canelo Alvarez. And then there was Chavez Jr. I believe both of them were undefeated coming up in the rankings. Josecito Lopez had just broken Victor Ortiz's jaw, and he got the Canelo sweepstakes. On September 15th, 2012, okay, Canelo was fighting Josecito Lopez on Showtime, promoted by Golden Boy Promotions. And on that same date, maybe 30 minutes before or after, HBO had Chavez Jr. fighting Sergio Maravilla Martinez. They were going at it. Networks were going at it. The fighters were going at it. They were trying to grab and divide the Mexican fan base. This all ties down to the title of the video, all right? Why Canelo ducks Mexicans or why he will refuse to fight them. Because during this time, there was a lot of divisiveness happening in the sport of boxing when it comes down to Mexican boxing. There's a whole lot of, oh, this fighter's better. This fighter will fuck up that fighter. Crab of a bucket mentality. And Canelo started seeing, behind the curtain, the people behind the mask. He was seeing the numbers. He was seeing the afición being very passionate. And there was a lot of divisiveness. If you look at who Canelo has been now, he's all about unity. Unity with, a lot of upcoming artists, Cubans, Puerto Ricans. He's all about unison in terms of his Latinos. That's what we know now. But back then, he didn't really speak. He didn't really give out interviews. But on September 15, 2012, HBO versus Showtime, Canelo versus Josecito Lopez, and Chavez Sr. Jr. versus Sergio Maravilla Martinez. The winner of that was going to be the new face of Mexican boxing. Right? Canelo ended up bodying Josecito Lopez for 5 rounds. Right? He was just much more massive, bigger, stronger, faster. And Josecito, as brave of a warrior that he is, he tried his best, gave as good as he tried to, was receiving, and it just wasn't enough. Chavez, on the other hand, was getting completely outboxed. Maravilla, dancing circles around him, popping that left hand, hitting him with the jab, just circling the heavy set Chavez Jr. And then something incredible happened at the end of the 11th, going into the 12th round. He lands a beautiful shot Wow was Maravilla. Everyone is thinking to their heads, fucking Senior versus Mildred Taylor all over again. And he was close to pull off a miracle, but it didn't happen. From that point on, it was all about Chavez versus Canelo. And Canelo ended up being that force behind Mexican boxing, right? But there was a lot of people that still looked at Canelo as the other. They didn't really truly accept him. He had to go on a fight. He was looking to fight Cotto. Cotto gets upset by Austin Trout, goes on to fight Austin Trout, beats and drops Austin Trout on a very competitive bout, then fights Floyd Mayweather, tries to avenge all of the Mexican fighters and Latino fighters that Floyd Mayweather has always beaten. And he comes up short, cries, I was born ready. All this mentality going on. And he came up short. Then he goes on to fight like Perro Angulo, an amazing, just display of offensive prowess from Canelo. Then Erislandy Lara. Like, this is when Canelo had a lot of pride, a lot of Mexican orgullo. He was just, he was all about fighting and no disrespect. Just a true man's man. And Chavez Jr. just was kind of lingering, nowhere to be found, having tough fights with not Brian Viloria, but one of them Brian fighters. Was Canelo. We know the story of both of the fighters. One ended up moving up to cruiserweight, got knocked out by like a Russian fighter. Canelo went on to become who he is, but he still received a whole lot of backlash from the afición, his Mexican fan base. All the Canelo waits. He's disgracing Mexico boxing by not fighting Triple G. Like, he was, even to this day, he's not really loved. There's a lot of hate towards Canelo. And this honestly hurts Canelo. The fact that he hasn't truly been received. That's one of the reasons why Canelo refuses to fight Mexicans. That's why he refuses, or quote unquote ducks, Jaime Munguia, Zurdo, David Benavides, because he doesn't want that divisiveness that he had with Chavez Jr. Then when he fought Chavez Jr., it was a little bit of the same story. Golden Boy Promotions had the breaking of the wall, but during that promotion, it wasn't about, contrary to Trump's rhetoric or playing politics. There was still a lot of divisiveness reinvigorated all over again. Canelo versus Chavez Jr. brought a lot of divisiveness, right? And then slowly but surely, you started realizing that Canelo was the face of boxing. And then he went on to his incredible run at 168. Fought Triple G, Danny Jacobs, and then it's kind of where we're at right now with Canelo. So that's one of the reasons why Canelo won't fight Mexicans. And you might say, well, he's excluding, and not, if he's all about unison, why not bring boxers and families all together to watch traditional, old school Mexican boxing? Barrera versus Morales, Rafael Marquez versus Israel Vasquez, Rocky Juarez versus Juan Manuel Marquez, Baby Boy Diaz from Texas versus Marquez. Why doesn't he bring that unison? Isn't it about feeding Mexican mouths? Why would he exclude the Mexican fighter from receiving a Mexican payday? These are all valid points to ask Canelo. Like, if you're all about unison, imagine the money Jaime Munguia can receive, or David Benavides, from the promotion of that amazing fight. Essentially generational wealth. I mean, what makes Caleb Plant worthy of $10 million and David Benavides not worth that $10 million that he got paid? What about Jaime Munguia? We just saw Jaime Munguia essentially fight for pennies on the dollar and gave a barn burner fucking fight versus Sergey Derenchenko. So even though the unity that Canelo wants, it's essentially like segregating his fellow Mexicans from receiving a payday. Now, this isn't charity. This is a profession. And Canelo causes shots. So there's no any way that you can force a gun upon him and be like, hey, motherfucker, you fight this. That's not what you tell rich people. Rich people essentially do whatever the fuck they want, right? That's how they got to the position of power, and they remain there. Not by listening to you and me, by sticking to their guns, their vision, their career choices, right? Far more successful people. So that's really the truth of why Canelo don't want to fight Mexicans. It goes back to September 15, 2012. That's when it started. And to this day, it still continues. And again, he can never make people happy. He can never do it. Till right now, There's going to be Juan Manuel Marquez still talking bad about him, right? Maybe Barrera and Morales on Un Round Mas. They're still going to talk bad about him for not fighting the Mexican monsters. And I feel a little conflicted and divided about it as well. On the one hand, I respect what Canelo is saying, but on the other hand, as a boxing fan, I want to see quality fights. Those are going to be great fights. I don't know if Canelo, let me go to this point as I wait for Speed and I wait for Drew. Hopefully they hop on. I don't know if Canelo can beat David Benavidez. Okay. I know David Benavidez is flawed, but so is Eddie Reynoso's boxing coaching style. Okay. He's done great things with Canelo Alvarez, but he might not have the same success with other fighters. Hell, as Canelo emerges close to 70 total fucking fights, there's a lot of wear and tear, and there's a lot of room for growth for David Benavidez into his career. He's showing signs of improvement. And as Canelo wears down, this is what happens. And a lot of fighters too, especially when they fight or they refuse to fight young, fresh black fighters, is fight them when they're young. Canelo should fight David Benavidez when they're young, Jaime Munguia, because they might just get better. For instance, let's say George Kambosos were to fight Keyshawn Davis. He could probably beat Keyshawn Davis right now. But if he waits 5 more fights, 10 more fights, and Keyshawn starts getting much more mature, starts developing and gaining more ring experience, understanding positioning, understand the science behind it much more than he already has established right now, it's going to be a nightmare for George Kambosos. Like it might be a nightmare for Canelo to fight David Benavidez. This shit is not going to get any easier the longer he waits. So he might never fight David. Now, here's the thing. David might be a completely wrong style for Canelo, and the fact that he's taller than Canelo, has longer arms than him, and Canelo, rooting back to 154 versus Perro Angulo, middle at 160, at 160, at 175, Canelo gets tired. He carries a whole lot of muscle. Versus Perro Angulo, he was completely dominant for like 8, 9 rounds. But I think in that 10th or 11th, Perro was fighting back. And you can see Canelo getting a little flustered, red, hanging more up on the ropes. Right? He couldn't put him away. Now, Tony Weeks stopped the fight, but Perro, as we all know, he's really like a late bloomer. He's one of the type of dudes to receive like 4 or 5 punches to land 2 of his own. David, in my opinion, is better and bigger and stronger than Perro Angulo. So it's only going to be a matter of time before David might get the Canelo fight and starts working those body shots. If you look at Canelo's fights, most fighters don't attack Canelo to the body. They don't. And why don't you? He gets tired later on the rounds, all right? And my job is to get him even more tired. If I hit Canelo, his hands are going to drop, and that high guard that he has, he's going to start dropping it to protect his body. There goes the left hook, the right uppercuts, the fours all over the top. So again, it's going to be a very, very interesting style. And when it comes down to the trainers, Eddie Reynoso is very limited. He's a very limited fighter, okay? We've seen all of his fighters essentially lose, get beaten, or his fighters leave. At one point, not only was it Oscar Valdez and Canelo, it was Ryan Garcia, Frank Sanchez, and Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz hadn't been looking good under Eddie Reynoso. Neither did Ryan Garcia. In terms of where they're deficient at, Eddie Reynoso wasn't able to maximize and better them, right? There wasn't no growth between those fighters. To this day, there kind of really isn't either. Canelo's still fighting the same style that he fought Caleb Plant versus Billy Joe, right? Callum Smith and Bivol. It has not changed. And you have to understand this. There's always a bag of tricks that you always have in your backpack, right? But you have to incorporate a different wrinkle and adjust to certain fighters. Okay? So for instance, you cannot fight Caleb Plant the same way and try to fight him and beat Bivol that same way. Bivol doesn't really use a shoulder roll like Caleb Plant does. Bivol is a two-handed fighter. Caleb Plant is only a lead left hand, left hook dominant. Okay? He doesn't really bounce in and out. He's more lateral. So you can't really incorporate the same type of style. All right. Canelo loves to hit the arms. But if you look at Bivol, he was catching, boom, and then shooting right in between the shots and throwing a lot of 1-2s. Right. What if Bivol in the rematch started going to the body on Canelo? Might get a little tired. He might get caught with a left hook upstairs. Who knows? But Canelo needed to work more of the body. Anyway, going back to a little bit, Eddie Reynosa's style has been exposed. And we don't give a lot of credit to what Jose Benavidez Sr. is doing over there in Arizona. Let me give you guys match room. He's looking like a young prospect, solid contender. And he soon will be fighting Marcelo Coceres, the same guy that probably exposed and beat and dropped Edgar Berlanga. He has Rayo Valenzuela. Now, I know he got knocked out by Edwin de los Santos, but that dude, Edwin, he's looking to be the truth. That dude can fight, and he can crack, and he can box, and he just showcased it against Joseph Adorno. Then you have Jose Benavidez Jr., the guy that, got shot in the leg and, got knocked out by Terrence Bud Crawford, but he was competitive for those 12 rounds up until that uppercut. And if you go look at that knockout and knockdown, both Bud and Jose Benavidez Jr. threw the same exact uppercut. It's just Bud was a little faster and it was a little shorter and it landed first. And homie did the stinky leg and it was all she wrote. And then you have David Benavidez, and he's looking to be an amazing fighter. Now, I know his resume is very thin, but mind you, he had barely turned 19 or 20, and he was the first youngest champion ever at 168. So that Jose Benavidez Sr., whatever he's doing in Arizona, his method is working. Okay? Now, I know that he has a lot of assistants, but that's what you're supposed to do when you're training 4 or 5 fighters, right? You oversee the bigger picture, you implement certain strategies, and you have your assistants reinforce your message and make sure it gets to the heads of all 4 or 5 or your stable fighters that you have. All right. So his method and his recipe of cooking, he's excelling very well. Mind you, little history course. When Jose Benavidez Jr. was an amateur, the 2 best highly touted amateurs was Jose Benavidez Jr. and Frankie Gomez. Now, for those that don't remember who Frankie Gomez is, Frankie Gomez is a cat from East Los, and he was signed to Golden Boy Promotions. Frankie, I believe, ended up retiring, and I think he ended up being a mechanic now with his pop, working at the auto shop. But this is the guy that had a lot of experience, and he knows how to fight, and he knows how to box. In fact, he was the only one that I remember that beat a prime, pesky Mauricio Herrera. For those that don't know who Mauricio Herrera is, this is a guy that should have been Fighter of the Year, a champion, and should have had Upset of the Year because in, I think, 2014, maybe 2011, in my opinion, he beat Jose Benavidez Jr., and he also beat Danny Garcia in Puerto Rico. Now, there were close fights, but I thought Mauricio landed the better jabs, and he won that fucking fight. In fact, he won both of those fights. And I think Max Kellerman would agree with that. During that time, Max Kellerman was very vocal, and he wished if it wasn't for the powers that be and business and how the sport of politics is evil, fighters like Ismael Barroso and Mauricio Herrera should be champions, should pull up the biggest upset of the night, and sometimes maybe even Fighter of the Year. So, for instance, let's say Barroso had beaten Rolly, which he did, and dropped Rolly. Let's say he would have been a champion that night. So it's a big upset of the year, and he's a champion. And let's say Ryan Garcia goes, I want the Ismael Barroso fighter. I wanted Rolly, but he got beat. And let's say Barroso knocks out Ryan Garcia or beats Ryan. I mean, those are huge-ass upsets for a 40-year-old dude that looks like a jackal. I mean, that's going to be rare. And let's say after Teofimo Lopez beats Josh Taylor, Teo tries to unify with Barroso. This is all hypotheticals. And let's say Barroso also drops and upsets Teofimo Lopez. That would be like three of the most incredible winning streaks you can ever expect of a 40-year-old. It'd be like 3 Buster Douglas moments upsetting Mike Tyson's. First Rolly, then Ryan Garcia, then Teofimo Lopez. But because Those moments really don't happen unless you knock them out completely, unconsciously. Mauricio Herrera didn't get that nod versus Danny Garcia and Jose Benavidez Jr. And then the last memory that we know about Mauricio Herrera is he got knocked out in 4 rounds by Virgil Ortiz, a guy with a 100% knockout ratio, and for some reason either has like a protein enzyme deficiency in his body, but might not be able to fight ever again. All right. Maybe a weight bully, or just maybe he's just a fucking gym rat that overworks himself to death, essentially, to the point where he's passing out. Anyway, going way back, bringing it all the way back to Canelo Alvarez. Okay. Jose Benavidez Sr., the trainer, the father of all these fighters, essentially, he might have a recipe to beat Canelo Alvarez. Remember all those sparring urban stories that we would hear about? Oh, Benavidez, man, he was 250 pounds, but he was giving Triple G good work. He sparred great against Zurdo. He sparred great against Bivol. Like every legend that we heard about, those sparring wars, David was holding his own. Guess who heard that also? Canelo did. So I'm not saying Canelo won't beat Benavidez. I think if they were to fight, Canelo would work the body, land some uppercuts on David, and penetrate through his high guard. Because David's very flawed in terms of his footwork, but he is improving on it. But with that being said, I think Benavidez, as he starts getting younger, much more ring experience, and taking on fighters like Caleb Plant, like a possible fight with Demetrius Andrade, maybe Jaime Munguia next, then maybe David Morrell or Jamal Charlo. And if Canelo isn't retired then, and David is the last man standing and eliminating all these fighters like Andrade, like David Morrell, Jamal Charlo, and Jaime Munguia, I'm going to probably put, and it would be wise of you to bet on David Benavidez to upset an older Canelo. That might take 2 years, but as we know, we fight and we watch Canelo fights on Canelo's time. You can try to strip him, impose mandatories, but as we've known, and Canelo's history has shown us, he's willing to walk away from sanctioning bodies, imposing certain fighters to fight him. He did it with Triple G. He went back down, fought Amir Khan, Liam Smith, then he went up to 164 and fought Chavez Jr. So again, you can't really tell the rich anything. And maybe Canelo has earned the right. But the sport of boxing will always remain. Canelo will probably retire at the 35 or 36, and David Benavidez will still be lingering around. He'll still be fighting in his peak years, 28, 29. So anyway, man, that's about 30 minutes of me talking, and none of these dudes are hopping on. So it's a little, and that's pretty much all I really got for you guys. I just wanted to shoot the shit a little bit about David Benavidez, and I love what those Arizona boys are doing. I thought Rayo Valenzuela upset and beat Chris Colbert. I thought he won 6 rounds to 4 plus the knockdown, but PBC and Chris Colbert prize time, they had I don't know, another narrative, right? Maybe to get the Tank Davis fight. Where does that leave Rayo Valenzuela? I'm not exactly too sure. I would like for him to fight. I mean, maybe Hector Luis Garcia stays at 135. I know he's still a champion at 130, but if he decides to move up or stay at 135, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. There's a lot of fights that at 135 that could happen between Jose Valenzuela, but it kind of really depends on the activity of PBC and the fighters that they want to pursue and fights that they want to pursue. And without further ado, thanks for joining me on the panel, Speed. What's going on with you, bro?
Oh, yo, man, nah, I was just letting you, well, I know that the kids call it cooking. I was just letting you cook. Uh, but I would call it old fashioned ramble, bro. You were just rambling on, man. Just a lot of, just a lot of belly wash and, uh, nah, I'm just messing with you, man. No, you were cooking, bro. I just wanted to hang out, listen to what you were going off on, because that was quite a that was quite a rehashing of modern boxing history. And I always have to remind everybody every time I hop on one of these lives that I have a very bad memory. So I'm the perfect person to tell a story to. If you got something to say, I'm a great listener, because especially if it's about something that I like boxing. Uh, Something that surely I forgot, but when I was living through that moment, I was being moved. You best believe that if you can come to me with a story of something that I experienced, is going to bring back some flashbacks. And I'm not talking about the kind of flashbacks that you get once you dropped a couple of drops of LSD or nothing like that. No, no, no. I'm just talking about the kind of flashbacks that allow me to recall wonderful moments uh, as a fan of the sport. So thank you very much for those nearly 30 minutes of incredibly coherent, uh, vivid, and clearly stated historical opinions. That was great. I That reminded me of one of my favorite channels, uh, UK cat by the name of Boxing Beats and Rhymes. The man, I'm not too sure how old he is, but he's definitely been around the boxing YouTube streets for a very long time. He's had a show for a very long time, and it's very historical, very well reasoned, and he tells some incredible stories like the one you got. Vivid, uh, fresh stories like the one that you just told. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to having heard that right there. Uh, I saw that, there was some things that you said there, and I do agree with a lot of it, right? Like the first thing that we must address is that Canelo did say something about not wanting to fight Mexicans. Now, I don't even want to paraphrase because surely I'll get everything wrong, but I'm not too sure if he says I don't want to fight Mexicans, or like if he said he has some kind of disdain for putting himself against his own countrymen, as if he feels some kind of nationalistic pride uh, that would allow him to box for the sake of putting Mexico on the map. Because if that's the case, well, he's got another thing coming, because Mexico has been on the map for boxing. So we don't need him to think that way. There is no era in boxing that has not enjoyed great participation of Mexican pugilists. So that's one fault that I could find in that reasoning. Secondly, um, again, I don't want to take his words out of context, but what was the context that he was saying it? Was he saying that uh, there's really no competition right now as far as Mexico, and he would prefer to allow them a shot to do something with the career while he clears out the division where he's at, where just coincidentally enough there wasn't Mexicans. Like for example, when he fought 168, like I always say, he can say whatever he wants. Like Anthony Joshua could say whatever he wants. Wilder could not say whatever he wants, but what matters to me is action. Even if he had said that, right? It didn't really have to affect him because he was at 168 beating undefeated champions that just happened to hold the belts, and none of them was Mexican. So even if he had said that, it's a moot point because it wouldn't really have affected him. Now that he has procured all four belts, now perhaps we can take some consideration into those words and say, what does Canelo do now? What does Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan do now with his career, knowing that there is a person of some Mexican descendancy who has been calling him out for many a year, whose father has been insinuating that Canelo moves cowardly. But we also have to look into what does it do now that the Benavides are actively not calling for that fight. You see, um, I'm sure that you're up with news, and you obviously have heard how Senior said some things about how he is reminded that Morel, Plant, and Charlo were the three names that he secured under that three fight deal extension with PBC. We knew that from the get. Uh, but of course, we know that if Canelo meddles in any affairs and he'll take a fight, they'll drop anybody, especially somebody like Morrell, who is just likely a banana peel for low recompense. He'll take that fight at any moment because Canelo is the man that brings you the money and he brings you the fame. If you can beat him, you're going to be surely considered in the pound for pound list of many people. Like, for example, Bivol. Bivol, yep, he has, if I'm not mistaken, participated in, was it the Super Six? Did he ever participate in for the Muhammad Ali Trophy? Maybe I'm wrong, but he has built his name up. But a lot of names that really get passed over as greats because they may not have really accomplished much. Maybe they were just tough contenders. Maybe a couple of guys that had a good resume as far as names, but probably not many belts at all. So he goes there and beats all of them guys. Looks great. Then he has an opportunity to fight Canelo, little guy coming up in weight. He masterclasses the guy, and now he has some fame, and that's all really because he beat Canelo. Because again, we can only just go based off the accomplishment of others, not the eye test. Because everybody has different eyes. I have 20/20. Some people might have 30/15. But what I'm saying is this: Benavides and his father ain't actively calling for that fight. When Canelo said what he said, he was pursuing undisputed with men that just were not of Mexican origin. And now we have to see, why would Benavides not actively call for the fight? And will Canelo take it? Because again, the one thing that I never really understood, what was the context. What was the context behind the question where Canelo answered in those words? And maybe you can clear that up for me.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't really remember when Canelo first said that. I'm not too sure if he was on ESPN Deportes, the Spanish version, and he was
Hmm.
talking to one of like the critics in the panel. That always like scrutinizes him for every move or fight it seems that he has. But I do remember when he tried to clear it up first, and that was when he fought Triple G. Now, I don't remember exact same words, but he goes, "Guys, when I say I won't fight another Mexican, is because I represent Mexico." Okay, that's what I remember. And then he ended up saying like, "But I don't care. I will fight anybody." Now, that wasn't the first time he said that statement or that line. I think it was either might have been on an interview. I don't think it was like straight up after a fight. I'm pretty sure it was against or on ESPN or maybe on like one of those channels like Little Giant Boxing. He goes, "Oh, I don't want to fight another Mexican." And then when he fought Triple G for the third time, I believe it was the third time, he stated, "Look, guys, you guys watch a little video and then you guys a little snippet of a video and you guys run with it and make other storylines." And he tried to clear it up, but it was very vague and even more ambiguous than "I won't fight Mexico." He says he won't fight Mexicans because he represents Mexico.
Hmm.
Okay. And what does that mean? Like, it's kind of strange. Like, for instance, if I was Vitaly Klitschko and I have a twin, or, I'm 2 years older than Waldemir, and maybe some Saudis or somebody puts up 100 million, and me and my brother are about to make 100 million apiece, I would fight my brother for 100 million. And like, what are we talking about? You put that
Yeah.
together, that's 200 million plus maybe upside in terms of sponsorship and everything. I mean, a lot of family members fight for free. So it's not like we're asking Canelo to fight his twin or Ramon Alvarez. We're asking, bro, just fight another Mexican. I think Canelo's sense of patriotism. I'm not saying it's a false sense of patriotism. I just feel like he doesn't really understand what it means. Like, in terms when it comes down to boxing, okay, this is when I feel Canelo was. It's a very vague statement. Until to this day, it's still like very polarizing because again, when we look at boxing and traditional Mexican fighting, okay, we have an amazing list of trilogies, rubber matches, where fighters like Vasquez and Israel Vasquez and Rafa Marquez have fought in like 6 or 7 times, and they made a career out of it. Everybody talks about Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti, and there's films about this, like The Fighter, directed by not Danny Boyle but David O. Russell, right? acted out by Christian Bale and fucking Mark Wahlberg. But these guys, Rafa Marquez and Israel Vasquez, they fought 6 or 7 times, and one of them is actually fucking blind due to like probably the blood and the concussive blows that they received fighting at 118 pounds that they fought each other at. Right?
Hmm.
So it's almost like a sense of honor. It's not, it's definitely a sense of honor to make amazing fights between Mexicans. And Canelo, I feel like, was kind of snatching that spirit off and just be like, but I don't care. I don't want to fight Mexicans. It was not like, it's kind of like reversed. Like it's a weird sentiment to have. And I don't really know where it came from, but I think like in the opening little speech that I gave, I think that's where it started to root from. He must have like
From the
probably,
fact that
but I
he
don't know
started to get a
where.
lot of discredit and resentment from his own people, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, even to this day, you can never, you can never please people whatever you do, especially when you're Canelo. You know, they want you to
Right.
fight the whole fucking world. They want you to
Hmm.
even go to heavyweight and fight everybody. Hell, they want you
Hmm.
to suck down 30 pounds and fight Tank Davis if
Yeah.
fucking you would permit it. Like, oh, go fight Tank Davis. Oh, go fight Bud Crawford at 158. Bro, I've been fighting at 168, 175. Like, I don't think you guys know how hard it is to drop the weight that I walk around in, and then you're asking me to drop 10 more pounds just because he beat an amazing fighter in Errol Spence. So it's a very interesting statement. I don't really know where it was coming from. He to this day he's never really cleared it up. To this day, I don't know if he's ever going to fight a Mexican because there's only a select few that are actually his height, his mass at those higher weights. And yeah, man, I don't know. It's just a very weird situation and a career choice of words that Canelo has openly stated, and now it's in the air. But yeah, I do agree. Well, you said something amongst that Benavides should fight Bivol. Did you say that correctly when you were?
No, no, no. I said that that any that David Benavides had most recently started senior started to bring up the fact that that Canelo doesn't need to fight anymore. You know, those underhanded kind of comments where he's saying to the effect that Canelo doesn't need to fight anymore because he's already accomplished everything that anybody can expect of him. Um, and at the same time, you know, he's they don't need him anymore because now he's a man that's beaten, and he's obviously showing his age and his wear and tear. So, you know, in the one hand, he's saying, oh, he doesn't need to do anything, but he's also saying we're moving past him because he's no longer a competitor for my son. That's why he brought up the fact that they don't want to pursue a Canelo fight anymore because they got Morrell, Plant, and Charlo as part of their 3-fight contract. Um, so, but again, the thing that matters to me, right, is not so much the words, but the action. Because there's a lot of people with words. Everybody says something, and everybody's opinion can change over time because it's not necessarily called flip flopping. It's just that as you grow and experience things, your whole you learn and you experience things in a new light. You may have opened up your horizons to a different way of thinking, persuaded by some forms of enlightenment or some epiphanies. But nonetheless, I never hold a person 100% to the word unless it's in the contract, because I can expect that one day you'll say one thing and the next day you'll say something else if you come to the realization that you are a fool or that you were wrong, right? So Canelo can say whatever he said, but the thing is, do you expect him to duck any Mexicans? And that's where I have to say, absolutely not. Canelo has not ducked anybody. He's fought in some of the toughest men um, and all the divisions that he's fought in. He's never really left anybody behind. You can nitpick, but if you nitpick, then you're gonna come to realization soon enough that the people that you think he may have ducked have themselves stuck many people, and their careers have never amounted to anything in comparison to Canelo's. So you can't be super harsh on Canelo and super soft on everybody else. You can't grant everybody a pass. And you can't really discredit Canelo too much by taking losses when, again, we're talking about a guy who may have started fighting five, six divisions from where he is at currently, right? It's natural that as you come up in weight and you start losing those physical advantages, if you ever had any, that naturally the bigger the guys and the more powerful they are, the more exposure you're placing yourself in towards defeat. So that's why we have seen Canelo look less sharp than, let's say, he has before in the past. Nonetheless, we still have a guy at 168 that's knocked three guys or TKO'd him out of the four guys that had belts. That's him. So he's obviously very competitive and apt at those at that weight class, 170, 175. We saw that that may be his peak, but you cannot take that uh, angling and say because Canelo looked bad at 175 and Oscar Valdez lost over the weekend that Eddie Guerrero is a bad trainer. Because again, this is a guy that's been moving these guys from lower weight classes to
Eddie
the point that he
Reynoso.
maxes them out and he puts him at uh, harm's reach, and they lose as a result of that. He tests him harder than a lot of other people would test their own uh, fighters. That's why David Benavidez, who's 6'2" or whatever, has stayed at 168 for many years, which I have to commend his dedication to keeping that weight. But we also have known that in at least two fights of his in the past 3 or 4 years, he also has not made weight. So we know that his body's telling him, you may be pushing your tenure here at this weight class. You might want to skip this one around and go to 175. But they don't test him as hard. So when you're comfortable at a weight class, when you have the physical advantages and the prowess to beat your foes, you're going to stay there. But that's not going to lead to greatness. That's not going to lead to greatness. Greatness would be testing yourself where you don't belong. That's Canelo. Testing yourself is where you don't belong. Oscar Valdez, who you just stated last live, he may have likely need to come down to 126 to be competitive again. Because again, we're talking about guys that are going up in weight and definitely losing all the advantages that they had while they were much smaller, fighting in smaller weight classes. So I think you may be being a little too harsh on Eddie Reynoso. Uh, if you look at Oscar Valdez, Canelo's recent career, you'll come to the conclusion that they are taking some of the toughest fights uh, in all of those weight classes that they're fighting in. So what's going to happen when you take the toughest fights? Hey, you're flipping a coin in the air, and you called heads, and it may land on tails, and that's it. You win some, you lose some. Simple as that. But you cannot
Whoa,
say
whoa,
that
whoa,
David
whoa. Hold
Benavidez.
on, hold
Wait,
on.
wait, wait. But you cannot say that David Benavidez Senior is a better trainer than Eddie Reynoso when we just saw one of his fighters lose to a Dominican.
All
And
right, so
and
hey, let me
David
clear up a
and
few things. I never said that he was a better trainer than Eddie Reynoso. I said that he has a certain style that can exploit and crack Eddie Reynoso's style of coaching, right? Because what we saw with Navarrete, that's all essentially what David Benavidez looks like at 168. He throws 1,000 punches, a lot of punches. He lunges and leaves his feet to throw those uppercuts like Navarrete. Now Navarrete is very creative and he's pretty sloppy. He crisscrosses his feet just to maintain some type of balance, and then he redirects his punches to get him back, his legs under him. David doesn't do that, but we do know that David is his feet are kind of like in quicksand in the mud because they're very flat-footed. But he does have a style that can wear and grind an aging fighter that's getting near 70 total fights. So I never said that he was better. I was just saying that one is being exploited, right? Eddie Reynoso has been exposed, so to speak, and Jose Benavidez Sr. isn't getting the credit that he deserves. Now, I don't want to repeat what I said about him earlier, but that's one of the things. Another thing, you you had mentioned Eddie Guerrero His name is Eddie Reynoso. When you were
Oh,
talking
Eddie
about
Guerrero's
his wrestling,
what Latin Heat WWE. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eddie
right? And
Guerrero.
here's another thing. Going
Guerrero.
back to when Canelo said, guys, when I say I don't want to fight another Mexican, it's because I represent Mexico. He also said like a sentence or two after, he goes, look, guys, don't disrespect me. He's only fought in one champion, one ex-champion. He's talking about David Benavidez only fighting and knocking out Andre Durrell or TKO stoppage, whatever. So going back to what I had mentioned earlier, if David Benavidez fights Andre, and I hope it happens, and then he fights, let's say, Jermall Charlo or Jaime Munguia and David Morrell, and he eliminates all these guys, right? Damn near all undefeated fighters, top tier contenders. David would essentially be the last man standing. So when I look at Canelo and he says that statement, it's a very obscure, very vague statement, but I also look at it as, especially that last part where he says he's only fought one ex-champion. Don't disrespect me like this, right? He's basically saying, I don't like his choices and his opposition. This dude is essentially calling him sweet. Like, bro, he ain't fought nobody to earn a fight with me. He fought Andre and beat Andre Durrell. Now he has Caleb Plant. So two ex-champions. He was supposed to fight Jose Uzcategui, a third ex-champ, but I think he failed a drug test or like two drug tests. And it might have been for steroids. So Benavidez right now has to just be active and fight a lot of fighters. If he really wants to make something miraculously and get the world's attention, not just Canelo's attention, he will naturally move up and just try to go defeat Bivol or Beterbiev, right? But the fact that Canelo has said he only has one ex-champion, Andre Durrell, now Caleb Plant, you're not worthy of my time. That's essentially what Canelo is saying. Now, what about Jaime Munguia? I don't know how many ex-champions he has, right? I don't think Darenchenko has an ex-champion. I think he only probably has Saram Ali, maybe another belt at 160. No, he never got a belt at 160. So basically what I'm saying is Canelo is saying, yeah, I'll fight these Mexican fighters, but they're not worthy of me. At least Callum Smith was a champion, and he had something that I wanted. Same thing with Caleb Plant. That's why these guys got paid 10 million, so to speak, to fight me, because they had something that I have. But here's what I don't understand, and
That
this
he
is where
needed.
I'm very hard at Canelo. And yes, you do make a valid argument where you're like, if you're gonna nitpick Canelo's career opponents, those same fighters that you are going to say that he ducked, look at where they're at and the fights that they ducked themselves. So, for instance, you're probably talking about Demetrius Andrade at 154, at 160, and even probably now at 168, right? But he also didn't fight none of the Charlos. And then you can be like, well, Jermell ducked or outpriced himself versus that Andrade fight. And then Jamal Charlo is inactive for 2 years and still hold on to 160 and don't fight Carlos Adames, his mandatory, the interim belt. So you are correct in certain aspects of those. But there is a history in what Canelo has always been doing. And since we're going down history and memory lane, is this. He would fight guys like Amir Khan and made a Canelo weight. He fought Amir Khan at 155, then went down to 154 for Liam Smith, and then moved up to Canelo weight, created his own weight class, and fought Chavez Jr. at 164. Not at 160, not 168, or 175. He fought him at 164. To a guy that we know in Chavez would always fail, like making weight on the scale. So yeah, he has always ducked all these fighters, but even this, bro, even this. It's very interesting how he didn't fight Demetrius Andrade at middleweight when he could have been undisputed. Because mind you, he did beat Triple G, got 2 of those belts. Then he unified versus Danny Jacobs, took his strap, and then all he needed to do was fight Andrade and make history at middleweight. Mind you, he would have been up there in terms of that run with the likes of Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and he just kept staying there. But he decides to go to 168, fights the Rocky Fieldings, fights all these fighters, and he fights Billy Joe Saunders. And who Billy Joe Saunders, if I'm not mistaken, and if memory serves me right, he was supposed to fight Andrade first. And then somehow he pops dirty for nasal spray, right? At least that's what his excuse was. Well, there's an ingredient in his nasal spray. And basically that fight with Drew with Andrew and Billy Joe Saunders, and then soon after, Eddie Hearn and the WBO, they don't strip Billy Joe and they reward him with a Canelo fight to unify in Texas. So I don't understand how these things happen.
Well, it happens quite easily. You already know the
If
answer
you
to
fail
that.
a test, the
You
same thing with Valdez. He failed a test on Robinson Conceição. Something about, he drinks some herbal tea, right? From some curandera right there in El Pueblo. Okay. He doesn't get stripped. He never does a hair fall.
curandera, by the way, means like a witch doctor or an herbalist.
Right. So what I'm saying is there should be a precedent where if you fail a drug test in an upcoming fight and you're the champion, you automatically get stripped. You
Yeah.
automatically
So
would maybe
let's
fight.
keep it
Hold
to
on, hold on.
what we're trying to address. Let's not
So,
start going
right.
on
I
yeah,
said all this
let's
to
not go
say
wayward. Okay.
the reason.
So
Hold
let's do
on.
this, right?
Listen. The reason why I nitpick all these certain elements and facts is because, and we criticize Canelo is because he deserves this criticism. Yes, he's done an amazing amount of things, but he's also done some pretty shitty things as well. All right. Again, I just explained to you all the little shitty things that he did. Now, whether you want to be like, there's a higher cause, it's for a purpose. Well, I don't think it's pretty nice to knocking out Amir Khan at 155. I mean, I don't really know what purpose that serves. Amir Khan does not prepare you for
Okay, so let's address those things
155.
right there. Let's address those things right there. The you've already heard this. You've already heard the story before. You already know the answer to that. Uh, the reason why Canelo was having fights like that, it was because he was being promoted by Oscar de la Hoya. The whole Golden Boy years, Oscar de la Hoya, especially after uh, Al Heyman, Richard Schaefer, and Golden Boy took all of his fighters and only left him with Canelo. All of those years, Golden Boy, and even before that, Golden Boy knew that Canelo was their cash cow. So when you don't when you have a cash cow, somebody that with little effort you're gonna sell, you can be creative with the matchmaking, right? As long as it's intriguing enough, and as long as the fighter there has a name of some renown, you're gonna sell. That explains the Amir Khan, an Amir Khan that, yes, absolutely chinny, but tricky fighter for many. Um, not everybody can beat Amir Khan, especially at that time. And if you did, you were going to be a champion. So it was one of those, names that provided some intrigue, open up markets for, let's say, like the UK, so that Canelo can become a name across the pond. And it secures an easy win for Canelo for a lot of money. And we know these fights were intriguing enough because whether or not they were on pay-per-view, they were watched or sold well. I can't recall which was for pay-per-view or not. I reckon the Amir Khan was a pay-per-view fight because Amir Khan was a good name. He didn't belong at that division, absolutely. But nonetheless, that was the handling under Oscar de la Hoya. Now, contrast that to how Canelo has been moving post Oscar de la Hoya. And now you have to deal with the guy that's just been fighting champions. See, here's the thing. This is the reason why I value somebody with the career of Canelo. I take fights for at face value, right? Again, I don't condition how a person has procured a belt, because if we did, then we're gonna probably go and nitpick, careers like Terence Crawford, who I'm sure he's picked up a couple on vacancies. Shakur Stevens, who I'm sure he's picked up a couple of vacancies. Oscar Valdez probably even picked up one of his belts in a vacancy. So I'm not gonna go through that, because you put yourself in a position to fight for the belt. Hey, that means you climbed up the ranks. And yeah, naturally, if a person vacates and doesn't give you the opportunity to fight for that belt, and you fight somebody and you win it, that's all that matters, because somewhere the lineage has to begin. So Canelo has fought mostly champions in all of the time that he's been away from Golden Boy. right? And no one else is doing that. No one else is going up to just to beat champions. Everybody nitpicks Canelo's career, and they say, "Oh well, Bivol was a slippery. It's a banana peel that backfired on Canelo because he thought he was gonna pick the easy guy at that division, and they backfired on him. Nah, bro. You know what Dimitri Bivol had? He had a belt. And why did he matter to have a belt? Because he had already picked up all of them at the weight class before. Naturally, there's nothing you have to do at 168. Benavides, who's lost his belt, and I believe he won those on vacancies, by the way, lost his belt at the weight because he couldn't make it, doesn't have no belt. So he's not ducking Benavides because Benavides doesn't bring money to the table. We know that because he fought Plant, who's one of Canelo's leftovers. I think it only sold like 130,000 pay-per-view. By the way, I'm one of those 130,000 that purchased it. Everybody else probably streamed it illegally. But nonetheless, Canelo would take on anybody that has a belt, right? He would take on anybody. And that's the Canelo that we're nitpicking while everybody else is ducking each other. Now, there are some good points that you made, obviously, like why did he and I think the term would be appropriate, duck Demetrius Andrade. Yeah, because he could have become what, undisputed at 168 right there.
Middleweight, 160.
Middleweight, yeah, yeah, 160, 160, yeah, 160, I'm sorry, 160, he could have, yeah. But what exactly had Demetrius Andrade done?
I
Who
don't know,
has
the same
he?
thing that Dimitri Bivol done. Absolutely nothing but hold a belt.
No, Dimitri
Like
Bivol
if I
climbed
told
up
you who
all
did
the ranks,
Demetrius
bro.
Andrade
We
beat
just didn't you
for the
just make an
WBO belt?
argument for
Nobody.
Demetrius Bivol to be the man? You said that just a live or two ago. You named all the names, and you said that he was the man because he fought all those guys, and he was a great
Nah, nah,
champion,
nah. Beterbiev
and
was the
that's
dude that
why he
fought
became.
all those guys.
No,
Listen, listen. You're
Viturbia
cutting off a
knocked the
little bit.
shit out of him.
Yeah, but Beterbiev
Yeah,
fought
okay,
those
yeah, yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
dudes.
But
Hold on, and he also
look,
fought Marcus Brown, and he also fought Alexander Vozdik. Okay, a fighter who yet, mind you, Alexander Vozdik was the one that knocked out and put into a coma Adonis Stevenson, and Beterbiev unifies with him. Okay, Bivol never fought none of those guys. Like Bivol was, I don't even know how Bivol got the Canelo fight. I have a conspiracy how he got that fight, but it don't really matter about what I think of how he got that fight or whatnot. But
look. Let me
whatever
make it short.
Bivol, hold on, hold
Let me
on.
make it
Whatever
short if you don't
Bivol
mind.
did to get the Canelo fight, Demetrius Andrade had the same thing at 160. Whatever Bivol did, Andrade did the same shit too. But here's a different kicker. Andrade had been following and stalking Canelo, bad naming him. Was a champion at 154 when Canelo was there as well. Was a champion at middleweight, the same thing as there. So there's actually a buildup in history and dislike, disdain towards one another. Canelo never even knew Bivol. You see what I'm saying? But he knew Andre. And guess
Yeah,
what?
no, I get
Yeah,
that.
he might have been a champion at 175, right? Bivol. But Canelo is not like Canelo has never been a champion up there. He had knocked out Kovalev. The difference is, though, again, significance. Demetrius Andrade had the last infinity stone for Canelo to be undisputed at middleweight. Why go fight Danny Jacobs, a guy that got beat by Gennady Golovkin when you already beat Golovkin? If your road
Yeah,
is to
but
be
again,
undisputed
that's
at middleweight.
just
Hold on, hold on, hold
again,
on.
that's just
Why fight Danny Jacobs to unify and be one belt away to becoming undisputed and then never fight Demetrius Andrade to become undisputed? It doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
go up to
Again,
168 and try to accomplish the same thing that you were doing at 160? It
yeah.
makes
Look,
no
look,
sense.
listen.
Look,
This
hold
is
on,
the
hold on, hold
way
on,
it.
hold on. I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking.
Well, you
Danny
tried to.
Garcia fought Rod Salka. After Danny Garcia had a tough fight with Mauricio Herrera, he was fighting at catch weights, by the way, 142 and 143 pounds. He made Rod Selka, a 135 pounder, move up, fight him there, and then soon after he ended up becoming a welterweight. That's essentially the same thing Canelo did with Amir Khan. That's terrible.
So here's the thing, okay?
It don't make any
To the
sense.
one sense, yeah. Look, so he didn't fight Demetrius Andrade. Okay. Canelo's pegadillo. Okay. That's his little sin. Okay. Again, Demetrius Andrade, who is always put on stinkers of fights. I don't think anybody is a fan of that guy now, right? Because there's really nothing that he brings. He's obviously a very skilled fighter. He has a lot of advantages a lot of the times against his foes, and somehow this athlete, obviously a natural born athlete, somehow decides to never entertain the fans. Just eke a win, eke a
But that
win.
doesn't
You know.
matter.
So no, what I'm telling you is this: I'm trying to set up the reason. I'm trying to explain why I think um, Canelo moves the way he does. Canelo, A, will go for you if you have belts. B, will take you on if you put up a great fight. And C, if people are interested in it, they'll watch that fight. Now, are you gonna tell me that you'd prefer to watch Canelo fight uh Demetrius Andrade over Danny Jacobs? I don't think so. Because we know how Danny Jacob moves. We know Danny Jacobs has taken some of the toughest fighters and called out some of the toughest fighters in recent middleweight and 154. I think is where he fought 154 history, right? So you're gonna go with the Danny Jacobs fight unless you somehow want to see a guy walking on his back foot forever. You see, I don't think so. Canelo wants violence in the ring. He wants to entertain the fan. I don't see no problem if Canelo wants to entertain the fans. That's one. Secondly, if you have a belt, he'll come after it. If you can do both things, if you offer both things, he'll do it. Now, in the case of David Benavidez, he doesn't offer a belt, but he does offer entertainment value because he's a come forward aggressive fighter. Perfect for Canelo. Now, I do believe that Canelo would take the fight at any moment. But he's been clearing out a division and fighting tougher men than Benavides. And I don't fault him for doing that. In fact, that is what we should expect from greats. Not to fight a young 25-year-old who's lost his belts twice because of weight issues and drugs, and somehow is only getting name recognition because of his Canelo's leftovers. The only credible name recognition really being that, because everything else is like not spectacular. He hasn't really fought in anybody of note. He just looks devastating with the level of competition that he's faced in. Well, guess what? I think Benavides is a great fighter and probably put up a great fight with Canelo, maybe even surprises. Although I don't think he would, but nonetheless, I would like to see the fight. But here's the thing:
Whoa,
Canelo
whoa, whoa! Let me
is
address a few of the points that you made. First, going back with Demetrius Andrade and Danny Jacobs. Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of Danny Jacobs because, like you said, he makes bigger fights. With Triple G was very entertaining. Canelo was very entertaining, and so was hell. Even the fights with Sergio Moro were somewhat entertaining. And he also gave us at 154 or maybe at 160 Dimitri Pirog. So I know Danny Jacobs is willing to fight everybody. In the Miracle Man story of cancer, I'm a huge ass fan of Danny Jacobs over Demetrius Andrade. But
and Canelo
of
must
your point
respect that.
saying that it's all about making great fights. Erislandy Lara, overall his career, he's a boring fucking fighter. Erislandy
But he
Lara.
had a belt, right?
But hold on. What happened when he fought Perro Angulo? Mad entertaining fight. What happened with Erislandy Lara versus Jarrett Hurd? Another great fucking fight. They actually unified and it was very entertaining, right? And Lara was dropped in both bouts. And Lara had to, those guys cut off the ring very well. Lara was gassing out and he started to sit there in the pocket. Okay, look at Austin Trout. Austin Trout is not an entertaining, he's not that entertaining of a fighter. He's essentially Paulie Malignaggi, but a southpaw. All he does is throw jabs. Occasionally he'll throw an uppercut, maybe a left hand, maybe a right hook, but for the majority of the fight, it's just stick and move. What happened when Guillermo Rigondeaux, again, he's overall a boring fighter. But what happened when you put him up against Nonito Donaire? He looked amazing. He looked amazing. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes other great fighters bring the best out of another fighter. So I'm not saying overall Andrade is pretty boring, but that fucking fight versus Willie Nelson, that was not boring. The fight versus Vanes Maritosin was not very boring. When you put Andrade and you put him to the test, he's a very exciting fighter. When he fought all these guys at 168 or when he signed over to the zone, what was Andrade doing? He was knocking all those dudes out in 3 rounds. He made Jason what's the Ireland fighter? Jason Maloney? No, that's the twin brothers from
Randy
Australia.
Lee?
What's his name?
No. Andy
No,
Lee?
not Andy Lee. He was with Golden Boy, but he's a white guy from Ireland, and he just went 10 rounds with Edgar Berlanga. Well, Demetrius Andre knocked that same dude out in 3 rounds, 2 rounds, maybe 3 times in the first round. I don't really remember. So his style at 6'4", 75-inch arms is troublesome for Canelo. Okay, let me go to a different point. Dimitri Bivol. The reason nobody knew about Dimitri Bivol, you know why nobody knew Dimitri Bivol? Is because he is a boring fucking fighter. Now, you didn't think he was boring when he fought Canelo Alvarez. I didn't think so either. He looked amazing, but he wasn't that exciting in the other fights. He wasn't an exciting fighter against Lenin Castillo, the same guy Callum Smith knocked out in 3 rounds and made him do a stinking leg. And I can go on the list. He just looked dominant. Like Guillermo Rigondeaux looked dominant against everybody else. Like Demetrius Andrade looked dominant against everybody else. Right? So what I am trying to tell you is when you put these quote unquote boring fighters against very exciting fighters that we admire and love and look up to and willing to watch every single fight because they do bring the fight, they show you that there's levels to these things. Like, for instance, Terrence Bud Crawford. Up to now, he's receiving all these flowers, right? But I wouldn't necessarily call Bud Crawford boring. He was knocking the block off people. The problem was he was making it look easy. The problem was he wasn't boring by any stretch of the imagination. Errol Spence was making all these fights exciting and competitive. So people loved that warrior spirit out of him. He was very entertaining. He wasn't really dominant. He eventually broke the will out of these fighters, but he wasn't dominant. He wasn't dominant against Sean Porter, Ugas, or Kell Brook. He eventually beat them. So Demetrius Andrade, and if we talk about any other sports, right, Speed? If we look at football, for instance, another gladiator sport, the Niners are a very aggressive team since like the 80s. Well, not even the 80s because they were more finesse, with Bill Walsh and all that stuff and Jerry Rice and John Montana. They were very finesse, deep routes, the West Coast offense. But in the early 2000s, we were all ground and pound, running the ball with Frank Gore, Garrison Hurst, Christian McCaffrey of modern day today. It's all about smash mouth football. That's an effective way to win sports games, being very physical. But then there's a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes that isn't really about smash mouth football. He's finesse, no look passes. He's running one way, he throws across his body in the other end zone because he has a big ass arm. And you know what happens? Those guys that are finesse, they light you up. They're so dominant, it's a little boring, right? Because it's a different style. In the amateurs, by the way, most amateur bouts, if you watch on TV, they're pretty fucking boring. All right? It's all about fencing and playing tag. Tag, you're it. Tag, you're it. Oh, I touch you here. I touch you here. They really sit on their shots. It's really boring. They dance. They have to showboat for entertainment, right? And we call that ring generalship in boxing. It don't matter if you're a come forward, amazing fighter, right? You have to fight the long Russian guard. Fight very methodical in chess. This is boxing. This isn't about preference, like, oh, this fighter. No, if you're ranked high and you have a champion and a belt, you should fight one another. I say all this to bring it all together and say, sure, maybe Guillermo Rigondeaux is boring. Sir, maybe Erislandy Lara, Demetrius Andrade, Dimitri Bivol, these are quote-unquote boring fighters because they're risk adverse, right? It's all about safety first, just boxing, the sweet signs, circling, and footwork, and just wasting time and just outpointing you. But when you put them up against your favorite fighters that are knockout artists, like Guillermo Tunonito Doner, Danny to Perro Angulo, and all these fighters, they rise up to the occasion and they show you that that they can fight. Same thing
Some
with
of them do, man. Some of them do, and some of them don't. But what I'm saying is that, look, I'm all for anybody fighting anybody. That's just a matter of fact. Uh, I that's what we need to see. Uh, but if I'm expected to pay for a fight, I want a violent fight. I don't care about a fight where some guy's gonna pot shot his way to a victory. Not saying, not trying to insinuate that Dmitry Bivol did. I think he just, kept it quite simple. He knew what his advantages were. He knew what his opponent's disadvantages were. Um, and it wasn't boring. I think a lot of the excitement, of course, with the fight like that is that we're being surprised. A lot of people were quite excited about the fight because they were surprised that somebody was that technical and skilled that they hadn't heard of. Believe it, believe it that there's a lot of ignorant people out there that overlooked Dmitry Bivol. I assure you that that's why a lot of people were excited about it, and because he beat Canelo. Now, had Bivol fought somebody else and put up another kind of fight like he's had before, where they ain't as exciting, again, that would keep him in the obscurity and of the minds of these boxing fans that watch the sport because of the violence and do appreciate the skills required to be a master at all of the other intricacies of the sport. But if we're gonna pay top dollar, and that's what we get into every time we have Canelo presented to us as an offering, we should get a very, very tough fight for both fighters. And I don't mean tough as in challenging. I mean tough like they're both gonna take some damage or at least want to expose themselves. So I would pay for a fight, like let's say the Canelo versus Better BF, more so than a rematch of Canelo versus Bivol. Especially now in hindsight that we know that Bivol can just keep it very simple, but was not too uh, particularly violent. Now, let me just close out my opinions, right? Uh, Eddie Reynoso has fighters that have looked worse for wear recently because they're taking on some of the toughest fighters in the shortest period of time, and they're climbing up in ranks to doing so. That's what I'm gonna say about that. Secondly, Canelo post Golden Boy Promotions is a person that's only been fighting champions and undefeated men and becoming undisputed. And secondly, David Benavides Sr. has a lot of assistants, and his fighters have taken losses too. And they have not looked spectacular, irrespective of the fact that somebody like his son and Price Stallion is fighting cock of David Benavides Jr. It looked great against Plant, but he couldn't stop him. Whereby the smaller guy climbing up in ranks and Canelo did. Now, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind me bringing up another subject to your attention, because we have hashed this out for like about an hour, and well, in my case, like an hour, but I know you've been going on for at least an hour and 20 or so. I wanted to see if maybe I can bring something to your attention. It is your show though, but do you mind if I bring something to your attention regarding Regis Progra, who most recently had some very interesting things to say regarding wanting to fight Haney?
yeah, go for it, man.
Okay, so we know that Devin Haney climbed up in rank. He hasn't climbed up to 140. He hasn't relinquished any of his belts at 135. I think he petitioned to keep his 135 belt there, that would allow him to fight Shakur Stevens as his mandatory, uh, because he's probably just mulling over his options. Does he A, really want to make the move at 140, and he'll do so to fight Regis Prograf. Very interesting name for top dollar at Matchroom. Or B, do I wait to see if Shakur Stevens, who's likely less powerful than Regis Prograf, would take on the fight for top dollar or top rank, right? So I don't think Devin Haney is going to duck any of these guys. I think he's just trying to look out for the most money and the most acclaim. And I really do believe that 135, he has nothing else to prove. He's procured all the belts and he's defended it once. Um, he should go up to 140 and test himself. And these guys are people that want to see how good they are, right? Devin Haney and Regis Program, the veteran of 140, he says he wants to fight Devin Haney, and apparently Regis signed his side of the contract. Devin Haney has not. So now we have Regis Prograf, who's a bit frustrated that he's done his part, put his John Hancock on his side of the paper, but yet he's frustrated because there's a couple of loose ends on the back channels that have made it so that Devin Haney hasn't signed his side of the contract. So he states, I definitely want to fight Devin. For sure, I want to fight Devin, but I'm not going to wait around. They got other fights for me. So now he's, of course, hinting at the fact that there's a couple of offerings on his end, which he goes on and says that in terms of his options at his immediate disposal, even though he's currently on a 3-fight deal with Matchroom, he says they include the likes of Sandor Martin, the Spaniard, Teofimo Lopez, who I believe he's not too sure if he's still with Top Rank or if that Josh Taylor fight was his last, in Ryan Garcia, who's with Golden Boy. Now, I don't know how Ryan Garcia is at his avail, knowing that Ryan Garcia, I don't think he's done. He's fought at 140. That would just basically be another cash out fight for Ryan Garcia and a big money fight for Regis Prograf. But it doesn't really do nothing for Regis except bring him some money. And to tell you the honest truth, it doesn't bring any value to us boxing hardcores because Ryan Garcia looked like booty on this last fight at 137.5 against Gervonta Tank Davis. Teofimo Lopez is obviously the ideal fight for us because we know that both of those guys are great counter punchers. They're aggressive, and we know that they share a common opponent. And Josh, the Tartan Tornado Taylor, Teofimo Lopez embarrassed Josh Taylor, and now he has an opportunity to fight Regis Prograf to likely embarrass him, or to for Regis Prograf to redeem the loss, the controversial loss that he had that he took under Josh Taylor's hands, and say, "Hey, listen, it was a controversial fight when I fought Josh Taylor. A lot of people thought I won that, and guess what? This guy embarrassed Josh Taylor, and look what I did to this guy." So it's that triangulation theory that makes that fight very intriguing. Now, Sandor Martin is obviously the easier fight for Regis Prograf to make because he's on that matchroom side. Uh, but Sandor Martin is a very negative fighter. He's backwards walking, pure boxer who just pot shots and waits for you to engage him and chase after you so that you can throw wide, and then he'll just move out of the way and hit you in the back of the head and topple you over because of the lack of balance that he's going to subject you and because of the constant and very beautiful foot movement. But nonetheless, he doesn't bring the heat. He just ekes wins because of how embarrassing you look trying to
Who?
chase after him. Sandor Martin.
Oh, okay. I thought
And
you were
here's the
talking
thing.
about Devin Haney. I was like, nah, bro.
No,
Devin
no,
Haney
no.
brings the
Hey,
heat.
I'll never say anything bad about Devin Haney. But Sandor Martin, absolutely. Here's this is the thing, right? Um, as a as a father that has children that box, but they ain't world champions, by the way. So I'm not gonna, blow my horn, and say that that's what I've made in my progeny so far. Nonetheless, I would tell you this: if my son is a champion, uh, and he's gonna fight a fight, you best believe that if the guy that he's pit against is walking back to start off a fight, you know what I'm gonna say? You know what, son? Stay right there, because it's not your job to chase after him. It's his job to come at you to take the belt from you. So don't fall for that temptation of chasing after the opponent. No, you wait for him to let go of his boxing style, which is obviously a negative, backwards fighting one. Let him come to you, and then you do your job. Stand on your ground, and you become the backwards mover. You and make him miss, and you capitalize on those misses. So Sandor Martin is not going to bring the heat. He's had two opportunities uh, with two fighters, and he pulled the same stunt, and none of them allowed him to become a star, even though he fought men like Mikey Garcia and officially retired him, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and he also did the same thing to Teofimo Lopez. He made both of those look bad. Both of those warriors look bad. In the case of Teofimo Lopez, he dropped them once that was counted, another one that was not. But
All right, so hold
that's
on,
not.
hold on. Let me, because you going on a little bit. Look, bro,
Oh man, you got some short-term memory. Worse than me. You got some issues.
Rigas needs Devin Haney. Okay, and this is why he needs Devin Haney. Is Rigas has done everything that you're supposed to do as a boxer and a fighter. You're supposed to take on the tough fights. You're supposed to enroll yourself in the World Boxing Super Series. You're supposed to fight Josh Taylor, and that was an amazing fight, brutal fight. He made that dude's eyeball look like what Navarrete made Oscar Valdez. So Rigas has done that, but he needs that marquee fight. This is that Devin Haney fight. Sure, he can have other prospects lined up. He can have Sandor Martin, who, like you said, retired Mikey Garcia, beat Teofimo Lopez. Should have got in that Josh Taylor fight, right? Instead of Teofimo that night because he beat him, whatever the case may be. So, yes, you are correct that he might have other options, but he needs that big fight that's going to take him over the hump, okay? And that's a Devin Haney performance. Right now, nobody's giving Rigas any opportunity to beat Devin Haney, not based on what we just saw in his last outing against Danielito Sorria, the guy who circles around. We know Devin can do that. And with the added weight and not having to sacrifice much more weight in Devin's going to be stronger. He might even be look bigger and punch harder at 140. Hell, if Danielito Sorria can knock down Rigas, who's to say Devin Haney can't either? Listen, as far as I know, Devin has been sucking himself so much that he's even losing muscle and pop on his blows. That extra 5 pounds making 140 rather than 135, he's gonna be stronger for sure. He's gonna be much more fleshed out. He's gonna be able to rehydrate more. If Devin walks around 160 right now, he might be 160 come fight night. So it's gonna be trouble for Rigas. And mind you, Devin might be quote unquote pillow fisted, might be quote unquote chinny, but with that extra added weight, you might just see him be and just listen. Devin is not a boring fighter. When he fought Jojo Diaz and Jorge Linares, those were not boring fights. He was completely dominant and landing pretty much 3-1 blows on these guys. Okay, the Lomachenko fight, whether he lost it or not, he still took the fight, and that was not a boring fight. Okay, Rigas, in fact, has a lot to work on, but at least now he knows what he has to work on if he needs to learn how to cut off the ring against Devin Haney or like similar fighters like him. Because Devin has longer arms than Rigas. He's much more athletic, right? He can circle out better. He's got a better jab. Now, we don't know that Devin can hit as hard as Rigas. More than likely not, right? But if you're getting popped by 3-1 blows, you're going to feel those punches. Rigas could get dropped, man. Get fucked
Yeah,
around by a punch.
but
Now, he might not get slept. Devin don't Haney. Devin
no, yeah, no, he won't.
but he
Yeah,
could
he won't.
surprise you. It might come with a body shot or whatever. But yeah, man, I'm really excited for that fight. But Rigas has to stay calm, man. Look,
So allow me to. So look, I know that a lot of people, and I think I may have even said it myself, that if a Regis program would take on Devin Haney, I have Devin Haney. because of the way they look. I don't think I said the way Regis Program last looked, because Zorrilla, again, he was just doing, in my opinion, similar, bringing a similar fighting style that was just allowing him to survive and embarrass his foe. We know that Regis Progra, if you engage a little more, he's a very dangerous opponent for anybody. A great champion, by the way. Uh, Big guy that could make the transition to 147 at any given time.
Wait,
Because
hold on,
why?
but hold on. You said that he had to. He don't need Devin Haney.
No, 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 no,
I'm
no, no,
telling
no,
you that he needs Devin
no,
Haney.
no, no, no,
Forget
no.
all about the
I'm not
he
saying
needs
that.
Devin, bro.
I read you an article that said that he don't need Devin Haney. He's
And
not
I'm telling
willing.
you that he does. He's so wrong.
No, yeah, well, well, again, yeah, there is some validity, is some truth to what he states, because again, Devin Haney was the difference between him and Teofimo Lopez, two very young, exciting, de facto undisputed, and a theoretic undisputed fighter. Um, and both of them are very they bring different types of challenges, very exciting fights. So why can't you just plug in, let's say, Teofimo Lopez for Devin Haney? Sandro Martinez, I say that's not a reasonable option for him, because I'm not going to fall for that. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, that's a great option for you at this moment, you reach his program. But Ryan Garcia, again, I said that's not a viable option. It's just so bad for so many reasons, right? So the only fight that makes sense, if he's not going to take the Devin Haney fight, would be Teofimo Lopez. But going back to address that one thing that that I hinted at before, which is that I have Devin Haney for the win against Regis Progra, was not so much because of how, you know, slow and subpar Regis Progress performance was, and then I'm gonna say that Devin Haney's performance was stellar against Lomachenko, because it wasn't. It wasn't. That's why I still say that he lost. But here's the one thing, you mentioned it, you brought it up. Devin Haney has had a history of not stopping his foes and getting tagged and responding in a way that once you tag him, it's hard for him to recover. So you described him, as most people tend to bring up in defaming him, that he is a pillow fisted, chinny fighter. And the reason why I give him favorable odds against Regis Progra is because, one, he fought probably the fourth greatest southpaw in boxing's history. And secondly, because in that fight, although he got touched up all kinds, he made Lomachenko's face look like you know it looked very battered. It looked very battered. And secondly, he took all those punches from that guy. So that no,
Hold on. Let
that's
me
a
cut you
pillow
off real
fist.
quick because you said some blasphemy calling Lomachenko the fourth greatest lefty in the history. Look, Marvin Hagler, Usyk, Terrence Bud Crawford, Manny Pacquiao, already better than Lomachenko. And that's just off the top of my head. So he's not even
Okay, then fifth.
right
The
now.
fifth.
Stop it, bro. Oh my God. Don't try to
He's
slip that
fifth.
past me, bro.
Oh, who else? Who else? Uh, uh,
It's crazy.
wait. Golden Boy. Okay. Yeah. All right. Whatever. So, hey, I have him higher than other guys. Okay, who cares? He's the sixth to you. To me, he's the fourth. I don't care.
Nah,
What I'm trying to say. What
there
I'm
has
trying to
to
say
be
is
some
this.
consensus of what it is that you're speaking of. You can't just say
Look,
try to slip that past me, bro. Like, come on,
that
dog.
look.
He
Oh
might
yeah.
be the best
All right. I was
amateur
trying to be
lefty.
sneaky.
Hold on. He might be the best amateur lefty with 396-1, but that's only 3 rounds, bro. And that's only 9 minutes of fighting with winning gloves and winning headgear. Like, I'll give him that. He's number one in the amateur circuit. Now when it comes down to pros, bro, why'd you mute yourself, bro? What's wrong with your mic?
Yeah, no, but the whole point of what I was trying to say is that the dynamic, the new introduction of what I saw was this: we no longer have a Devin Haney that's pillow fisted and chinny, because he took a lot of damaging blows from Lomachenko, and he sure handed it out. And the evidence is in the pudding. It looked like somebody threw Lomachenko face first into a meat grinder, and he somehow had enough osseous material to stop the meat grinder from continuing to crush his face.
Let me
But
tell you something. Hold on. See,
oh,
Devin Haney gets up. People talk a lot of shit. Okay, to Devin Haney. The kid is 24 years old and undisputed. Lomachenko, where was Lomachenko at 24 years old? You know who he was fighting? Orlando Salido. That's the difference between the pro game and when the amateur game. Okay, look at Dalalov, the guy that knocked out Richard Torres. He was 24 when Richard Torres was 18 years old. And that's a grown ass man essentially fighting 17, 18-year-old amateurs from California or the United States of America. Same thing with the Cubans. Like, of course, those guys are matured and physically stronger. Like Robeisy Ramirez, when he fought Shakur Stevenson, he was, I don't know, 20, maybe 23 years old. Shakur was what, 17, 18? They might have been the same age. Jesus, bro, who blowing my shit up? Look, listen. Devin at 24 has fought in
what
Jorge
was that?
Linares.
Was that money? Are we starting to get revenue? Was
That
that
was
money?
Vasily Lomachenko. Like, bro, at the age of 24, okay, and you said like probably an hour ago that why do you think Devin Haney's holding on to his belts, bro? If you just won the Super Bowl, right? Do you want to give your Super Bowl ring, not the Super Bowl trophy, but the class ring, the Super Bowl ring, back to the commission? Absolutely not. Why would you do that? You earned that shit. Just because I want to test the waters at 140 against maybe the guy at 140, right? Regis Prograis. And I'm supposed to just relinquish my belts so motherfuckers can get my crumbs? So Shakur can petition and be a paper champ? I mean, he's basically doing what Devin Haney is what got lambasted for in the past. Oh, he's an email champion. Isn't what Shakur is doing right now the same thing that Devin Haney did when he was trying to
Absolutely.
do
It
a fight?
absolutely would.
So basically what I'm trying to
Absolutely, it
tell
would.
you is Devin gets shitted on for doing amazing, great things. The same guy that beat George Kambosos, George Kambosos beat Teofimo Lopez. That's who Devin Haney beat for 24 fucking rounds. And he made George Kambosos look rudimentary just like Maxie Hughes did. Look, bro, Devin is doing his thing. And yes, Regis needs him, bro. He needs him more than ever. Sure, Regis can go fight Sander Martin. Hell, he can go fight Arnold
No, no,
Barboza.
no,
No,
no, no. He cannot, bro. He
Wait.
cannot.
Regis can go fight Sander Martin. He can go fight Arnold Barboza. Hell, Jose Ramirez. Okay? Now, you mentioned Teofimo Lopez. Teo and Devin are pretty much very similar. That's who Regis should be looking to fight. Either one of those two. Either 1A or 1B. The other names are honestly irrelevant. Sander Martin, Jose Ramirez, Chon Cepeda. Regis already has guys of those stature on his resume. He needs a Teofimo Lopez. He needs a Devin Haney because not only are they credible, not only are they pound for pound fighters, not only have they been undisputed or currently are or Ring or Leño, both of them are, they also are popular fights. And if Regis wants to make that life-changing money, all right, and be recognized worldwide, he needs those two fighters, either Teo or Devin. That's the biggest difference that he needs. Go for it, bro.
Yeah, no. So you'll never hear me say blasphemous things about Devin Haney. The thing is this. In fact, you won't really hear me say anything negative about any uh, person brave enough to step in the ring for our entertainment and for a few scraps from the table. You'll never really hear me say that. But I will say this: if Devin Haney comes to my small town, you best believe I'm gonna make my famous tri-tip, sit him at the table, make him some lemonade, and say, "Young man, you're all right." That's what I'm gonna say to the kid. Um, but yeah, so I just found it very interesting that he mentioned those three fighters as potential names that he would take on already at his avail. He said immediate options for him is how he termed it. Immediate options. And I really didn't think two of those names really fit there. For one, Ryan Garcia,
Yo, your mic's cutting off.
he just got his butt handed to him by Tank Davis. Nonetheless, we have to be realistic and say if Regis took that fight, he's making money, good money, and he's taking an easy win. So why wouldn't he take it from the business side? It makes sense. I do not think Ryan Garcia is brave enough to take that fight. I think Ryan Garcia is astute enough to pursue fights for what he perceives to be the best fighters for the most money. That's why he kept calling out Tank Davis for many, many years because he probably thought, well, he's the guy who's gonna put me on the map. And
Whoa, bro. Your mic is hella low.
but in
I
fact, we
cannot
all
hear
know
a
that
word you're
Devontae
saying.
Lewis is not the most accomplished fighter at 135.
Yo,
So
can you hear me,
Ryan
bro?
Garcia was not really about accomplishment. It was more about fame and money. Now, if Ryan Garcia fights Regis Prograf, he'll allow opportunity for Regis Prograf to play his game, which is get the fame and get the money. Sandor Martin doesn't do anything besides make him more embarrassing after that Daniel Zorrillita fight or whatever. So Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney are his only options. If Teofimo
Yo,
Lopez
listen,
is
listen
a
to me.
realistic option, then if Haney does not next few days, well, guess what? He has to he has to he has to move on.
Look,
That's it.
bro, your audio is
But
hella
like
low,
we
bro.
shouldn't wait for that man to keep going forever.
Your audio is hella low. I cannot hear anything that you're saying. Like you got me looking like an 80-year-old trying to put my ear to the TV, bro. Like I can't hear anything that you're saying.
Hey, you know what? You're not gonna believe it. So I put on my headset, right? I put on my headpiece and I was talking away from it. Like the headpiece was not on my ears. I was talking like if I was talking to you on the speakerphone.
I can tell. I could not hear shit.
Or I was going on a crazy old epigram, bro. You
And
just
I'm
missed
not
all
gonna
of
let
that.
you repeat yourself. Listen to me, bro. Listen. I don't like Regis Prograis. I don't like him. And this is why I don't like him. Marv Nation picked up a bout, right? It went to purse bid, and he fought Chon Zepeda. A very good fight, by the way. And Regis Prograis, he's got a big mouth and he talks a gang of shit. And he's done this on with PBC. He's badmouthed Showtime. He's even somewhat bad-mouthing Matchroom and Eddie Hearn to a certain degree, right? Because going back to what you were talking about in the video, and Regis like, I don't need Devin Haney. I got these other options. You're essentially undermining your own promotional company because the biggest issue, I don't know if you know this, but he's accusing Devin Haney and Devin Haney's team and father for pushing the dates a week or two after what he originally signed off on.
Hmm.
This is where all the speculation comes, and this is where like, hey man, he's trying to play games. The Devin Haney's are some bitches. That's where that, I don't know, opinion and view that Regis is stating. Anyway, let me not get all turned up and shit. It's not that serious.
Yeah, that's interesting though,
Yeah, he did the
because
same thing to Marv Nation. After the Jones Cepeda fight, they make an escrow account. They put the funds in, and he went to the bank, and he essentially badmouthed Marv Nation and be like, "Yo, what the fuck? The money's not here."
oh yeah, I
You
remember
remember that
that.
shit? And then
Yeah,
like a day or
very
2 days,
embarrassing.
oh guys,
Yeah,
we all good. The money is there. He's
yeah,
very impatient,
yeah.
very impatient dude, and I don't like that because he's a popular fighter. You know, he has a lot of views. So imagine if you're a small town promotional company or a small town independent business, right? And you finally get the attention of a client that might bring, publicity to you, and he badmouths you immediately. And you can be like, bro, I didn't do you dirty. Just be patient. It'll be there. But he already spewed that bullshit up into the air, And all of his millions of people are not gonna be like, nah, that Marv Nation company or that independent, business is not trustworthy. It's not reliable. But they're let's say they're all class and quality, right? But because he's impatient, he's willing to badmouth everybody. He did
Yeah.
it with BBC. That's why he's no longer with them. Right? He did it with Marv Nation, and now he's doing it with Matchroom and DAZN and Bill Haney. Honestly, if I'm Devin Haney, I'm gonna be like, you know what, Regis? You say you don't need me, motherfucker. I don't need you. I can go down to 135 where I'm undisputed. I can rematch Lomachenko. Go fight Sandra Martin. And I'm
Yep.
not gonna watch that shit. I can
But
go fight Shakur Stevenson. Hold on. I can go fight Shakur Stevenson. Hey, I can go fight Keyshawn Davis, Frank Martin. I can go to 140 and try to look to fight Ryan Garcia or Teofimo Lopez. You think you can get those fights? Those guys will fight me before they fight you. Hell, you know what I can do? If you want, I can go ahead and fight Sandor Martin. And I guarantee you Sandor Martin will fight Devin Haney before he fights Regis. If Bill Haney and them wanted to be quote unquote scumbags, they can do that to Regis. And Regis is going to be outside in the cold air with his dick in his hand.
oh, yep, that's what it looks like it could happen. That definitely looks like it could happen. Now, here's the thing, though. I can respect that, right? I can respect that because I know it looks bad that a fighter shows that much emotion, strong the feelings, uh, and the concerns that he won't get paid. Uh, and it's embarrassing when you put it out there for the whole world to see, because it almost shows like like you're, I don't know, needy, right? And whenever a man displays a needy behavior, it's quite embarrassing. But otherwise, I can forgive that because boxing is full of fuckery. And not only is boxing full of fuckery, this is, in my opinion, one of the toughest sports you can decide to make a living out of. So I don't hold it too harshly against him for demanding that they pay on the dot, just like you put that blood, sweat, and tears in the fight. Now it does look very bad on the man. It's not befitting a man to demonstrate a need. In fact, it's this the tantamount to what we consider thirst. Right? You see a woman, you act needy, you got that thirst. You take a fight, you want your money, you act like they're dealing in bad faith. You're dealing with thirst. You're showing an a natural desire off of no perceived experience that would allow you to assume there's a distrust thing going on. So yeah, it looks very, very bad on him. And you're right. If he continues to push buttons with the Haneys, because here's the funny thing, he actually ends that conversation, that in that interview, by saying, right now he needs me more than I need him. And I disagree. If he cannot get Teofimo Lopez in there, every other name that is immediately right there at a list of names that he can take on sounds subpar and unexciting, and not the kind of fight that would allow me to entertain putting any money in his pocket for. So I just found that to be very interesting that he would be so persistent. I don't know what the issue would be in waiting 1 or 2 additional weeks. But maybe again, he may just be the type of person that's not with the fuckery, and he probably respects the work that he does and he wants to get paid. But I do agree, it looks very bad that a man shows that kind of need.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I just don't overall like Regis. Again, he just talks out the side of his neck. Everything that he says is not true. Okay, even Arnold Barbosa called him out on it when Regis
David Haney
supposedly
sucks
sent
it.
him a contract, and Arnold was like, "Look, bro, don't try to come out on this Instagram live and just talk your shit. You had an opportunity to stop with Top Rank, where we know we have all the fighters out here: Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, myself, Chon Cepeda, and you decided to go sign with Matchroom. So you literally killed every single conversation. Top Rank sent you more money supposedly than Matchroom. So I don't believe Regis, bro. He's not Again, he's very impatient. Nobody has him on their pound for pound list, but everybody probably has Devin Haney, right? And
Yeah.
from that standpoint,
Good point.
like, bro, you can go on every criteria and just understand just off the simple. How many belts does Regis have?
I think he just got one, right?
He has one. So by the rules, he only has one mandatory.
Yeah.
Devin has every single belt, four, and he's Nino and the Ring magazine. So just alone by those belts, he has four different mandatories that he can fight if he just went down the list. On the WBC side, he can fight Shakur. On the WBO, he can fight Lomachenko. On the WBA, he can fight Jermaine Ortiz. On the IBF, maybe there's another mandatory. Regis can only fight whoever the WBA belt that he has under, and that's a mandatory. Let's say Arnold Barboza, that's the only fight that he can get. Teofimo to fight him, right? He can't force none of those guys because they're not privy to your sanctioning body demands, right? If the champion wants to fight his mandatories, he can. And if the mandatory refuses to take that bout, guess what? You get dropped off. Mr. Eric says Shakur over Devin Haney. Listen, bro. Text me your email, bro. Text me your email. I will send you the link so you can hop on this panel and we can talk boxing. Now, mind you, you can put on an icon or you can have like speed and have like no profile picture or video. You can hide the camera. But listen, if just text me your email and I will send you the link. It's very simple. You click the link and you're on here and you get to see the little format. But listen, Shakur he's the goods, but he's overrated. Okay? Shakur don't have no Lomachenko on his resume. Hell, he don't even have a Jorge Linares on his resume. Shakur has never fought a multi-divisional champion or a unified champion. Linares is. Shakur doesn't even have, now he has a Jojo Diaz, but that's all he's got. You see what I'm saying? Bro, Haney over Shakur any day of the week. Even when they sparred, and you can go onto YouTube, everyone talks about, oh man, Shakur is nice. You know, he's landing the better headshots on Devin Haney. Sure, he's landing the flush shots, but Haney's putting hands on him, head and body.
Yeah.
Pushing him up, bullying him up against the ropes. Man, it's a lot closer fight than people think. Sure, Shakur will land a nice straight right to the kisser. Maybe, wobble Haney definitely a little bit. But nah, man. Haney's growing, bro. He's growing. And, that's why Shakur's hating on him. And he's calling him out and trying to clout chase and build his mega fight. Because he knows Haney's that dude. And I know he's a little jealous of what Haney's been able to accomplish. And he's a little jealous how Haney's been able to do it independently. And he's jealous that he got the Lomachenko fight before Shakur could get the Lomachenko fight.
Yeah.
These are all facts. And you can tell it based on his behavior. He has that little malicious, envious smile, right, with the little dimples. Nah, that's one of those.
He's got a Joker smile, right?
Yeah, hell yeah. That little dude is fucking evil. He got mean intentions. And I know that because years back, he was in Florida and he kicked a girl and punched her when she was on the ground. That dude is not nice, bro. That's why you never catch Devin Haney doing shit like that.
I have a joke just so that I know, because it seems like we're gonna move on from a Regis Program. But Regis Program, I was telling you I wasn't trying to be too harsh on the guy when it comes to him trying to secure his bag, right? But he sort of reminds me of
ruin his bag.
Yeah, that's true. On this case, he's definitely about to ruin his bag. But he's almost acting like that Robert De Niro character in Goodfellas. Business bad, fuck you, pay me. Had a fire, fuck you, pay me. Remember, he kept telling everybody, fuck you, pay me. He was chasing after that guy, trying to get that money. He just kept saying, fuck you, pay me. So yeah, that's how Regis Program it sounded like to me. Just thinking like like how you described that whole dealing with Marv Nation, which it was a little embarrassing. I would wager that Marv Nation is likely never gonna want to do business with him. Probably can't anymore now that he's over there at Matchroom. Um, but yeah, that was funny. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And I do agree. Shakur Stevens is slightly envious of what Devin Haney has accomplished, being younger than him, having started his career. Who started the career first? Devin Haney? Yeah, right. Because he started fighting in Mexico.
Yeah, I
Um,
think when Shakur was on the road, to win his medals, Haney was already turning pro. So
Yeah.
I think
So
Haney started
he
professional.
decided at even younger than Shakur Stevens that he trusted that his family trusted him to become a great competitor, to even put him against real men where a loss does count against your record, and accomplish way more being 2 years younger, two and a half years younger. That's why I say Devin Haney, admirable young fella, has accomplished a lot. He's talking and moving like the ideal fighter. I don't see anything to dislike about the guy, but again, the dynamics that I've seen, that I would have to put him now against with somebody that we just programmed, I would say Devin Haney has the advantage because he is no longer a pillow-fisted, chinny fighter, and that's something that is new to his repertoire. Where in Regis program, I haven't really seen anything new, except perhaps the decrease in foot speed and
He's never had foot
movement.
speed. He's never had foot speed. He's always
Even
had this
worse.
like good herky jerky side to side movement, not side to
Hmm.
side, but good hip movement, head movement, and he always ducks relatively well, and he just has an amazing left hand.
Yeah,
And he
well,
had
none of that seems to be working in this last. So we see in one fighter improvement, and I tell you, the fighter that impresses me the most as learning the most, the quickest, is Devin Haney, and other people I really don't see much about it. Now, look, Shakur Stevens could do whatever he wants at 135, but
hold on,
once he
hold on, hold
reaches,
on, hold on. I'm tired of talking about these guys now. I'm gonna switch up the topic on you. What
do
do you
that.
think about Erickson Lubin? All right, this is the news of the day that it's gonna probably land on the Canelo versus Jermel Charlo undercard. Jesus Ramos versus Erickson Lubin. Now, if you don't remember who Jesus Ramos is a little bit,
Mm.
in his recent fight, he fought Joey Spencer. Okay, Joey Spencer.
Oh,
I know he was training out of Oakland, but he's probably I don't exactly know where he's from. But Jesus Ramos had him shell up the whole fight, like how
yeah,
Canelo had Chavez Jr. and how Pacquiao had Joshua Claudio. Okay, Joey Spencer, mind you, he probably had like 165 amateur fights. I mean victories, like 12 losses, like a 10-time national champion or a Golden Gloves champion.
yeah,
And Jesus Ramos is like an older brother beating on his little brother, where the little brother feels useless, can't throw nothing, and he just has to shell up because the guy's volume is too much. He's got heavy hands. I'm not trying to get knocked out. Now, to Joey Spencer's credit, he stood in there and he was trying to fire off an uppercut, but he just looked too small. Now, Erickson Lubin, man, that dude, I like him. He's mean. He's got grit. And what I saw in that Sebastian Fedora fight, yeah, when he was out looking like Hellboy, I saw a dude that is willing to die in the ring to get the victory.
respect, respect.
Hell yeah. I don't know, man. I think Jesus Ramos looks like a 168 pounder. That boy looks huge. He's tall. He's got some long ass arms. He don't necessarily got that one hitter quitter.
Yeah.
Erickson Lubin's gonna have that athleticism, but this is gonna be a. I think it's gonna steal the fight. Maybe. I don't know, man. What do you think about that fight before I give my opinion on that?
So, uh, so okay. So first off, I know everything about beating up on my little brother. Do it every day.
Yeah.
And secondly, but most importantly, right? Let's say his name correctly. What did you call him? You called not Erickson Lubin. You called the other guy. What was his name?
Jesus Ramos.
You're saying it all wrong. It's Jesus Ramus. His name is Jesus Ramus. Let's get that across.
Jesus
Uh, that's
Ramos.
how he identifies. He identifies as Jesus Ramus. Now, Jesus Ramus, see, I watch a lot of boxing. And the funny thing is this guy came out of nowhere. To me, I don't know if I even seen him fight before. So to be introduced in a pay-per-view event, uh, putting on that kind of display against a name that been in the fights before, broadcasted fights. Um, Joey Spencer, of course, a gallant-looking young man, skillful and tested, and whose name was, had some recognition in the amateur ranks. To be completely and utterly devastated, like he was at the hands of, to me, an unknown fighter. That's how you that's how you make a name in the sport. You get an opportunity, you exploit the hell out of it, and you make yourself the boogeyman. Now, what do we see at that weight class? We have what is it? Is it 160 or 154? It's 160, right? Because I
Now
think
154.
Erickson Lubin still fighting at 154. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, he wants to get
Wow.
back, bro. He just knocked out Luis Cuba Arias,
Yeah.
or how
Yeah.
you would say it, Lewis.
Lewis. Lewis Cuba
Ari.
REA, REA, Lewis Caba REA. So Lewis Caba REA, yeah, I don't think I watched that fight. I really don't think I watched that fight, but I know who Erickson Lubin is. Now, let me ask you something, because this is gonna be likely uh, not the same kind of outcome, but it could be, depending on
Both
how
southpaws, by the way.
both Southpaw. Okay,
Yeah.
um, when you saw that Sebastian Taurin Inferno Fedora fight versus Erickson Lubin, and you started to see the deformity that became the flesh and face of Erickson Lubin, do you think that fight could have been stopped?
I think it was stopped.
I think it was right, but could it have been stopped sooner? Because it's not like his face just became that in the last round. It had been looking like that for a few rounds. So, do you think? Well, what I'm trying to say is, um, how did Joey Spencer's face look after he fought Jesus Ramos? Looked pretty shot up, right?
Wait, who against Jesus Ramos?
Yeah, when Jesus Ramos beat Joey Spencer,
Yeah.
wasn't Joey Spencer a bloody mess?
No.
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 What do you mean?
Like no.
He just looked all clean?
Yeah, just a guy like kind of like Claudio looked versus Pacquiao, just clean, and
Hmm.
it just all he had was a high guard. Like that's all he did. He just blocked everything, never opened up, and was just getting beat to a pulse. But I think he might have had a little bit of a black eye, but he wasn't like beat like he just refused to open up and exchange. But he was getting beat with shots, but it wasn't bloody like Erickson Lubin. It
Okay.
was like
Then
you're out of your league, little boy. That's all it was.
yeah, so the reason why I wanted to, cause see again, I forget a lot of things. Um, I wanted to ask if he had made a bloody mess of Joey Spencer's face, which obviously I thought he did, but he wasn't. Is because when you take the kind of damage that Erickson Lubin took at the hands of Fundora, that fleshy material tends to become tumescent and easy to harm the more you receive that kind of damage, right? That's why we'll have somebody uh, Gabriel Rosado, Gabriel Rosado, who gets cut with the smallest punch because that flesh is
Wait.
tatered.
Sorry. Correction. Yes, you actually are right. Jesus Ramos did open up Joey Spencer. Now let me go to a point really.
Jesus Remus.
I'm gonna try to do something. I'm not too sure if it's gonna work without being interrupted, but let me try
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. Let's
All right.
experiment. Let's have fun.
Well,
Jesus
no, it's
Remus.
just more of this timeline here. So I'm gonna show you a clip. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Let's see.
And this is Jesus
Oh,
Ramos
nice.
shooting.
Yeah, I see it.
So his face was actually really busted up and open.
Yeah. That's what I remembered. That's what I remembered. No, that's not that bad.
Well, let me see if they show a close up. Give me a sec.
Oh no, that's not that bad. But
Yeah, that's
but
not that bad, but
but again, we have Joey Spencer, who's never actually taken that kind of damage. But we do know that Eric Lubin has. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that I do not know if after the at the aftermath of Fundora fight, if Erickson Lubin needed any kind of skin grafting, but I do know that once exposed to that kind of tatering and weathering of the flesh, it is prone to be damaged much quicker any time around. Like for example, I expect Errol the Truth Spence Jr. should he ever take on another fight where he takes punches that cleanly at the hands of his foe, that harm left behind from not only the car crash but at the hands of Terence Crawford will start playing a big factor in his fights and in the way that his face that takes damage. So what I'm thinking, if this guy can fight an aggressive, powerful fight, uh, and bring it to Erickson Lubin, if Erickson Lubin does not have the power to stop this guy early, then he's just gonna prolong the kind of damage that this guy put on Joey Spencer, who's fresh faced and skinned. And now the kind of residual harm from the past fights that Erickson Lubin has taken may start playing a big factor, because what we saw in Jesus Remus is that he came out clean as a whistle. I think Jesus Remus, goodness, wow. I
yeah,
would have to,
that and Eric
wow.
Rubin co-main event on Canelo versus Jermel. Bro, that
Yeah.
shit is fucking tight, dog. That shit's gonna be a good ass night. Like,
And look, let's say something else, right? This is not, look, this fight, look how excited you're getting. Look
it's
how
a
excited I'm getting.
look, it's a good ass fight. Like, honestly, Erickson Lubin can pull the upset. Like, I'm excited. Listen, I like to bet, right? I like to go on Bovada. I like to go on BUSR, and I like to make boxing bets. And for the majority of the time, I actually win, right?
Yeah.
But as of right now, Bovada has yet to give out the odds of Canelo versus Jermel Charlo. Like, if I go to it right now, right? It
Yeah.
does not show me what are the odds. It will give me Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury plus
Wow.
plus 775 for Francis Ngannou. But if I do the same thing for Tyson Fury, I mean
Uh,
Canelo versus Jermel, it's not up there. It does not exist.
hmm.
So obviously the undercard is being made, but again, the fight is under a month away. Well, what are we, like 13th or so, 15th? So September 30th. Okay, so there's like a month and 15 days. But bro, I need to see all access. I need to see a world tour, New York, Texas, California, Canelo versus Jermel hyping it up. I need to see a Max Kellerman. Like, bro, this is a momentous moment.
Uh-huh.
Mind you, we have in the history of boxing, we have never seen an undisputed fighter fight an undisputed fighter. When they're both having all titles. Like
Yeah.
Teofimo, right, fight Josh Taylor. But Teofimo wasn't undisputed anymore. He moved up to 140. He didn't have the belts. Right? Jermel versus Canelo is the first time we see undisputed versus undisputed. Now, mind you, it's a big difference, the weight class, two weight classes, but that's the first time in history. Like, this is history in the making, and there is no promotion towards it. Now, I'm sure
Wait.
I get closer to the fight.
Yeah.
I need it now, bro. The buildup is right now.
Hey, you said something interesting. Maybe I misheard you or you misspoke. But did you say that Erickson Lubin is the? Did you say Erickson Lubin for the upset?
Yeah, I think he
S-
could beat Jesus Ramos.
wait. So Jesus Ramos is the favorite
I, I don't know. I don't know. I would say so.
by beating Joey Spencer. Let me just remind you of the names that Erickson Lubin has gone through, the experience that he has amassed in the last 7 or 8 fights. Jorge Cota or Georgie Cota, Jermel Charlo, Silver Io Ortiz, Ishay Smith, Zachariah Ato, I'm not too sure who that is, Nathaniel Gallimore.
Did you just call it Jamel Charlo?
Yeah. Like, isn't that
Right?
how they like Merlot, right? Charlot,
Charlo. What the fuck? That shit
like
sounds.
Merlot.
That sounds
Oh,
like fucking Chardonnay. Sounds like a champagne or a wine. Charlo.
he fought some guy named, and I remember all these names: Tyrell Goucher, La Banana, Jason Rosero. He fought Sebastian Fundora and Louis Erier. Now, that's a bunch of good names. Some former champions. And how is he, especially after coming on a victory, how is he supposed to be the underdog to an obscure and unknown fighter whose best name is Joey Spencer? See,
Oh,
that's
hold
what.
on, my bad. Pardon the interruption, real quick. I just want to clarify something. So I went on to DraftKings, and they have Canelo Alvarez minus 425 and Jermel Charlo at plus 300. That's
What
not.
does that mean? What does that mean?
So basically, Canelo is a 4-1 favorite, and you have to put $425 to make 100. Conversely, if you put $100 on Charlo, you win 300.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Canelo is a
Not
four to
bad.
one favorite, and Charlot is 3-1 in terms of getting revenue. So for every
Ooh.
$100 that you put, it's plus 300. If you were to put
Ah.
1,000, right, you win 3,000 in return. If you
Whoa.
10 grand, you win 30,000 in return. Conversely, if you put 1,000 on Canelo Alvarez, you only win 200, like $250, $300. So it's like as a betting man, you kind of want Charlo to pull the upset.
Yeah.
I think
Unfortunately,
he'll go to decision, and I think Canelo wins in decision. But we'll see. Charlo maybe
unfortunately,
has a little bit of French in him, and might win the World Cup. Who knows?
if I felt the need to amass more wealth, more than the millions that I have on my offshore bank accounts, then I might just be a betting man. But I'm frugal and I've invested wisely, so I don't need to bet a couple of dollars just for the sake of winning pittance. But nonetheless, I just want to clarify that Erickson Lubin is the underdog.
I don't know. I don't know. I think
Oh,
he
okay.
would be the underdog, but I think it'd be like close to 1-to-1 ratio. It would be really close. Not gonna
Yeah,
lie,
okay.
but I'll look it up.
Now, so this is just another example, right? You got very giddy. You got very giddy and excited about knowing that these fighters, Jesus Ramos and Erickson Lubin, are gonna fight each other. That says a lot about how both of them are performing, right? One, Erickson Lubin, I just named all kinds of names. I know all of those names. Some of them former champions. The fight between him and and uh, and Sebastian Fedora was one of the fight of the year contenders. He's done that. That's why you get excited with the
Oh yeah.
yeah, and with Jesus Ramos. Look what happened. The guy came out of nowhere. He took on a prospect, probably prospect slash contender or soon to be contender, with name recognition and the promotion behind him. He he made a name of himself overnight, right? You know how he did it? He didn't do it by walking backwards. He didn't do it by putting up a stinker. He said, "I'm here to fight, and I'm gonna fight." And he made a name for himself, and the fans such as yourself and myself appreciate that. And now, even though maybe you have some experience watching some of his prior fights. I don't recall that I have. All of a sudden, we all want to see that fight. A very
Well, listen, that's like a really hard kind of fight because Jesus Ramos, he's I feel like I first learned about him because of his uncle. He's another pro fighter, Abel Ramos. And what I like
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah. I
Abel,
remember that he was in his corner, right?
right, right. I'm not,
They look sort of the same. They look sort of the same,
mm, yeah, sort of, I guess.
and they're around the same age.
Abel Ramos basically retired Omar Figueroa. And then
Uh
Abel
huh.
Ramos, on the same night as his nephew, when he fought Joey Spencer, Abel Ramos
Lost.
ended up fighting. Yeah, he lost against Cody Crawley.
Yeah, yeah. That I remember that.
Ramos is he's always avenging his uncle's the fighters that beats his uncle. So he fought
Ooh.
a guy named like Luke Santa Maria, and then he beat his uncle, and then Jesus Ramos was like, "All right, I'm gonna beat you." So now I thought he was gonna get Cody Crawley, but it looks like he's fighting Erickson Lubin, and then probably he'll go ahead and fight the other dude. But yeah, man, this is good. Hopefully, I'm gonna say this year, PBC and Showtime, mostly Showtime, they're tearing up the game. When it comes down to boxing, fuck.
Yeah, but when it comes to influencer and misfits boxing, yeah, the zone has been tearing up the game.
Wow, bro. That
Oh man.
I can't believe you even said that.
Well, look, listen, look. Okay,
It's
see
boxing.
here's the thing, right? I have children. I
Wow,
have children. I
dude.
said I have a child.
Shit, and we'll talk about this another night. That was disgusting, bro.
All right. Well, all right. You go take a shit.
That was terrible, bro.
Yeah. Listen. Go take a shit. Please use some Costco paper because that's very it's two ply and very thick, very high quality uh paper. Just it as thick but softer than newspaper, and that'll get it done. So if anybody's out there listening in the
And on that note, good night.
good night.